Recording in progress.
That's the.
That worked.
That's not the same.
That's
That's
not
the
going to necessarily to YouTube, though.
If you want to make me host, I can do it.
We're live right now. Someone, I think Ms. Booker made us live.
Yes.
Yeah,
Julian?
Rich, can you launch on YouTube?
So
Do you
Julian,
have
I'll make
credentials to launch this on YouTube, Rich?
I have those, but I need to be made host.
All right, so I'm making Rich host. Okay. Change host. Continue. Okay.
Oh, you know what? I need to be logged into the Zoom account, and I don't have the Zoom password changed. Can someone direct message me the Zoom password? Ideally as a text, not in Zoom.
What does it say?
It says air conditioner.
Tomorrow, anytime. Gentlemen, those of you who are signing in. I bylaws the morning, so.
Okay, so after
And you mute. Everybody who's not talking, just mute. So everybody that's signing in, I see some attendees populating. Just we are having a couple of technical difficulties here, but we're going to be fine in just a bit. So hang in, and we'll get this meeting started.
I don't know. The signing with Google. All right, sign in.
Hey, Andrew, it's Colleen. I saw you on Channel 7 News.
Oh, did I sound intelligent?
You sound and you look intelligent.
Oh, wonderful.
Nicely done.
It was great. I saw you too.
Oh, thanks.
It was fabulous. Loved it.
Yeah, crazy stuff happening.
It's good, crazy stuff.
I'm in the webinar meeting.
I'm sorry, I got back in here. My question was, Rich, do you have the credentials to launch on our YouTube?
I do not have the new Zoom password. If someone can text me, ideally on my phone.
Doesn't matter because Mark's going to have to approve you. Unfortunately,
Oh, is it
supposed to be, I think it was a misunderstanding, but that was supposed to be happening. And it was supposed to happen before this. And Susan, you're telling me that you cannot launch on YouTube
Let me try again.
because
Maybe
nothing has changed. You've launched on YouTube in the past, correct?
Yeah, I have, but try again. It didn't work. I'm sorry.
Okay, can we make Susan the master host again?
Yeah.
Okay. Will do.
No, I have to do it, I think, because I was host. I just made Susan host.
Susan, can you try again?
I'm trying. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Problem is I have a new computer, and no one can do it unless Mark, or we have to change it, but he has to approve every person. So my computer, I don't believe will be approved to launch on YouTube. Otherwise I would.
I'm really sorry. It's not working, Stephen. I'm really sorry.
So it's two-factor authorization with Mark, and he's unreachable.
Yes.
So
Steve, can we record it and then put it on YouTube later?
I don't know if we can do it. I'm going to try one last thing and momentarily, and then we're going to move on with the meeting. We'll have.
It will work.
Can't all talk at once. This is being recorded. It just won't be on YouTube.
we can upload it after.
Yeah, I see it says it's being recorded.
Yes. Here's what I'd like to do so that we can move on with the meeting. Please make me, who's the last person that was a master host?
Susan.
Susan, make me master host. Okay. Hold on one sec, everyone. This is like this. Andrew and Howard, you are still co-host, right?
Yes.
I believe so.
Let's start the meeting and I will simultaneously see if I can, as master host, get the YouTube on started late, but I think you could start the meeting. We are taping, we're doing all our responsibilities, and we will be able to take care of some type of taping afterwards. So that's my suggestion. We have participants and we should be ready to move. And again, behind the scenes, I'm going to try and get the YouTube channel going on my own. Okay? And if my
Thank
video
you.
is out, that's what I'll be doing, and that's fine.
And welcome to the June Transportation Committee meeting, everybody. As we do each start of every meeting, we need to ask if somebody would voluntarily do the minutes. Can we get a volunteer for minutes? And once again, we have a fight over who wants to do it more. Anybody volunteer? Because we must get the minutes taken this time.
Andrew, I can do them until 8:30.
Then that's an incentive to have the meeting in by 8:30. That's fantastic. That's a plus. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you so much, Roberta. So on item number one is this,
I'm just gonna run and get paper. I'll be right back.
sure. Colleen, I see you're on with us. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Do you happen to have any update on the 106th Street mid-block crossing?
So, I mean, Andrew, as you know, that's been approved. We have to work with our signals division on the implementation. Right now, we have a backlog. I'm trying my best to get that expedited, given the fact that with the seniors who are, who have requested this, and the two buildings opposite in each direction. So I promise to get more information about installation, and I'll keep you posted on that, okay? I know
Thanks.
it's a priority, and I'm happy that we approved it.
I don't want to be a pest, but somebody keeps asking me, so.
That's okay, you be all the pest you want.
We also have a bunch of other things on the list,
Yes,
Colleen.
yes,
Can you address them all?
I can address a few of them since we're at it. So I did get all of the resolutions. Thank you. Jesse from the office sent them to me.
Great.
And I have to tell you, we have a flood. We had a flooding in our office. So we have not been going for the past 2 weeks, but I was able to get some information. As you know, Howard and committee.
Whatever his name is.
The board had sent us a resolution to establish loading zones. In Howard, I know Borough Commissioner Pinkar had conversations and we've had calls about this regarding the loading zones in Central Park West. And I believe he mentioned that Borough Commissioner Pinkar mentioned that we are focusing right now on neighborhood loading zones in the community boards. And I think it's believed that, a lot of these buildings already have loading zones. So we want to hold off on this until we're able to carefully study this to determine where, these loading zones are appropriate. So right now, I mean, nothing has changed with that until I'm able to get more information and, bring this back and have another conversation about it.
Well, Colleen, we actually did a lot of work. We had volunteers over a year ago come up with suggested places. So it's been over a year, and I know we need to figure out exactly how many loading zones. Scientists need to figure out what's the optimal number of hours of sleep a night, but we can all agree it's not 0. Right now it's 0 in many of the areas. That's clearly not the right number.
I know, and we did get the list that the community board sent to us with the proposed location. And again, we'll continue having a conversation about that. I'll take it back to Borough Commissioner Pinkar, and we'll continue to have a dialogue about that.
Okay, I just note that was over a year and a half ago. So if there's any way to expedite it, and it's still, the number's still 0. So if there's any way to expedite it, that would be really appreciated.
I will raise that with him. I will
Okay.
definitely. Daylight at certain intersections, that I'm still awaiting a response for. I will keep you posted on that one. Reconfigure 72nd Street. This is the one where the community asked us to look at installing a protected bike lane river to river. So that is with our bicycle division. A lot of work has to be done with that, with analysis and outreach. And, I'm sure that they are working thoroughly on that. And I sent a reminder to get an update on where we are with this and if there is a proposal that's being put together. And again, I'll let you know about that. And the cross park paths for cyclists, we are working with parks and the Conservancy on that. We had several calls with the Conservancy to see what the best approach would be in terms of putting together a proposal, which we will come to the community board. But I assure you, we are working on this one, and we should have something soon that we will share with the community board. The other one is the westbound cyclist route for West 100th Street. That I will get back to you. I'm waiting for information on that one. And then I remember the reconfiguration of left turns vehicles at certain intersections.
Yeah, that's a very recent resolution.
That's a recent one. So we will need time for that one as well. Okay.
That I understand.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Colleen. We appreciate it.
Perfect. And Andrew, I did not forget your traffic signal priority. That is also being looked at both by our transit development and our signals division.
That's wonderful,
And
because that would really
yeah.
help buses get through more quickly.
Right. And that's not an easy, piece of, that's not something easy that we can, do overnight. So a lot of study and thought has to go into that as well. Okay.
Yeah, it's been successful where it's been tried. I just want to be an advocate for it.
Yes. And we agree with you on that one.
Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
All right, so Howard, number one item is the general issue of enforcement. Whether it's enforcing speeding, cyclists, e-bikes will have its own discussion after this. But there are a lot of near misses and some not so near misses, actually accidents taking place on the streets now. And we're just wondering, Colleen, if you are in touch with the 2.0 and the 2.4 on trouble spots. The police precincts have identified certain places that they know are accident prone, and perhaps their signals could be adjusted in a number of those locations to make these accidents less likely. Perhaps an advanced green, and as we discussed last month, and you're going to get probably the letter, if you haven't already, about Central Park West and 65th Street, we need an actual red arrow to prevent people from going in a certain phase. So we have all of these kinds of issues taking place, but we just wonder what the coordination is between your agency, DOT, and the police.
So the coordination with that is whenever there is an accident crash location that's identified by the precincts, they will send us a traffic intelligence report asking us to either look at the signal timing, or if the markings are faded, or look at improving the crossing times for pedestrians, or if there's signs that needs to be added. That's how we communicate with the local precincts on that. Their traffic safety officer sends us those intel reports. So if both precincts have critical locations that they want us to look at, they can submit those intels to us, and we'll be more than happy to assign it to the divisions at DOT.
Do they give you information on a crash or an accident, such as the direction of travel or things of that nature, real details?
They do. If we need crash reports from them, I would reach out to them and I would get that, especially when we're doing our traffic studies and at a particular intersection. Yes, they do provide that.
All right. my last question before everyone else gets to ask theirs. When you get a report from a precinct, do you then look at that intersection to see if that has been a place where this has repeatedly happened? Or do you just treat each one independently?
To go back, whenever or if there is a fatality at an intersection, we have our safety team that go out there and take a look at that location to make sure the signage and the markings and the signals are functioning as designed. If we have a high crash corridor, of course, that becomes of concern to the agency. And that's where a lot of our safety improvement projects derive from. That's where they come from. We would work closely with the local precinct. We would work closely with FDNY on a lot of these safety improvement projects. Yeah, so we do get information from the agencies about this.
Okay, it doesn't have to actually be a fatality. It's also an injury you'll examine, correct?
Exactly. It doesn't have to be a fatality. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else with particular questions on the issue of enforcement?
Yeah, I had one thing.
Go ahead.
I just mentioned that since we were talking about 72nd Street, I just pulled up Crash Mapper, which is a way to find out how many fatalities and injuries we've had. In the last 2 years, there have been 774 injuries in our district and 7 fatalities. And a lot of them, a high crash and injury corridor is 72nd Street, particularly where it crosses Broadway. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, there's so many travel patterns there that I'm not surprised at that. Colleen, I assume you are looking at 72nd Broadway, Amsterdam intersection?
If we are, there are, SIPs that will come out of those locations. I don't know if the community board has sent us any a resolution of particular hotspots to look at, but I think that would be helpful as well to have something in writing.
Okay. Anyone else with a question on the, yeah, Rich.
Yeah, Colleen, thank you for being here. And I wish the precincts were here as we're talking enforcement. My question is kind of just a question for guidance, but I know DOT has made a number of safety improvements throughout the district, and a few that come to mind. One is Columbus at 81st and 82nd Street. DOT has put left turn lanes just to make sure the traffic keeps flowing. And the police are actually using those left turn lanes as parking lanes for police cars. There's also on Amsterdam at 103rd Street over the weekend, a Fresh Direct truck was parked in the left turn lane for the bike lane. So if a vehicle was turning left, they had to go around the Fresh Direct truck and had absolutely no visibility of bikes coming out. And I actually reported it through the 311 app, got a notice back saying that police have inspected and fixed the issue, and then went 3 hours later and that truck had not moved. So the police reported that it was resolved when, I don't know if they even went to the site, but they hadn't done anything. And then there are also corners that are daylighted where there are cars parked in the spots that are meant to be daylighted. And the police, especially if there's a parking placard, don't take action. And I'm just wondering how street improvements can be coordinated with the police so that if the police aren't going to enforce them, and if the street improvement actually makes things worse, if there are trucks parked in lanes or if the lanes are blocked, just how to make sure that before street improvements are implemented, we know that the police agree that they need to enforce that, or what else we might do to try to make sure that the police and the DOT are synchronized.
So, Rich, these are really excellent points that you raised. I can't speak on behalf of the NYPD with their enforcement initiatives, but what I can tell you is that a lot of our safety improvement projects have made a difference. At corridors that were high crash locations. I know the community board have had Fresh Direct at their district service cabinet meeting, as well as the transportation committee meetings to talk about their delivery operations. We are in sync with NYPD because you know, a lot of our projects, when we do implement them, we share that with NYPD. We review it with them, especially our protected bike lanes. If you know, Fresh Direct truck is double parking, or you know, again, it's an enforcement issue. If an NYPD car is, you know, in a lane that it shouldn't be, or in a parking regulation that it shouldn't be, again, it's an enforcement issue, and there's not much that we can do as an agency because we're not an enforcement agency.
Yeah, which is why we wish at least one of the precincts had been on this.
Absolutely. Why don't we hear from Barbara and then Susan?
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, Colleen. I'm frustrated by this problem, but I don't really see any solution based on the way things work currently, but it has to do with the fact that bikes don't stop at the intersections. And many times they whiz right by you when you're in the middle of the crosswalk as a pedestrian. I'm just wondering what can be done about that, if anything at all.
Well, I just wanted to say we have three items on our agenda, and I think all three are really one item: enforcement, generally.
Well, that's e-bikes, but it's e-bikes. This is not e-bikes. I'm talking about regular bicycles, Howard. So I wanted to make that differentiation now, because I don't think it'll be relevant later. So is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. But the point I'm making is that we have to keep the streets safe, and we're trying to come up with things that keep the streets safe. We have a record number of deaths on our street so far in 2021. Over 100 pedestrians have been killed by vehicles. So we have to have a holistic approach to making the streets safer. So that's, unfortunately, we don't have a speaker, we don't have the precinct here, but I think we all agree that there's a need for safer streets. Over 100 deaths so far in 2021 is just awful.
And whether you bike,
I completely
whether
agree,
you bike or drive or use transit, everybody is a pedestrian at some point. And it's pedestrian safety.
That is right. And anyway, I would just like to hear what Colleen has to say about the fact that enforcement entails a number of different things, but involving stopping when there's a red light. If there isn't a special light for a bicycle, it means that bikes should stop too, but they don't. And Ken, I've heard you say many times that you don't stop. And it's terrifying for a pedestrian.
You know, Barbara, you know, cyclists have to follow the rules of the roads just like motorists as well. And what we have done in the past is that we have worked with the local precincts at locations that you may think are problematic. We have educational campaigns where we go out there, we have our street ambassadors, they would go out there, they would give out, you know, educational pamphlets to cyclists, whether it's our Bike Smart brochures, you know, lights, bells, and so forth, and try to educate them. And we work, you know, very closely with the precinct on that. And if you find that there are problematic locations, feel free to email me or let the board know, and you know, we can coordinate something in the area.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Susan? Susan and then Ken.
Thanks, Howard. That's a great segue. Colleen, I would mention that 72nd and Broadway and 72nd and Columbus are spectacular locations for enforcement for every kind of violation. For anybody who does not know, I'm recovering from a broken kneecap right now. And walking along with a full leg brace and a cane is just terrifying. And my husband is tired of hearing me scream at bikers saying, stop, you have a red light. So I would say that my big thing here tonight is that enforcement should be for everyone or no one. Everyone or no one. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I'm so tired of enforcement for some things and not for others. And that's really my most important statement tonight. Thank you so much.
Ken is next.
Yeah, just in response to Barbara, you know, cyclists whizzing through red lights is one thing. Cyclists stopping or going very slowly, and then and if nobody's trying to cross in front of them, then proceeding is another thing. And there are a growing number of communities and states that are moving towards changing the rules for cyclists because they recognize that bikes aren't the same as cars. And so changing the rules and allowing cyclists to proceed with caution through red lights and stop signs, as long as they yield to pedestrians. And that should be the paramount thing. And in response to Susan, yes, everything in an ideal world should be enforced equally, but we have a very limited amount of resources, limited number of cars on the streets that the police use. And, Deputy Inspector Mallon, when he was running the 20th, he thought that it should be proportionate to the threat. So that was why he allocated about 3% of his tickets to cyclists and the 97% to drivers, because he judged that to be about the proportion of the threat. So I think that's a reasonable approach.
Doug, then Jay Adolf, and then Arena.
Colleen mentioned the program where we educate people, hand out pamphlets. Is there a plan to do that? And I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I would sure as heck like to see that stepped up quite a bit, to get everybody a fair opportunity to be educated and to know the rules of the road, so that and we'll talk about enforcement, I guess, but education should be a no-brainer. Is there any plan to step up that campaign, so to speak?
Sure. I mean, there is. I mean, I can share, the 2 locations that was just mentioned to me to our street ambassadors, and we can coordinate something with the local precinct. We can start off with that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Irena?
Oh, I said Jay was next.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the order of hands, it was Irena first,
Oh,
but
sorry,
go ahead, Jay.
sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, you're right. Irena, why don't you go? Andrew is absolutely correct. You are next.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I had another board meeting preceding this. I just want to, I find it really frustrating that when I'm on these calls, whether it's Transportation Committee or whether it's the full board meeting, I'm constantly told that somehow bicycles don't have to conform to any rules and regulations because they're not as great of a threat as a car. And I don't know how many people have to get hit, how many people have to die before we step in as a community board representing the public. On Friday, and I don't know if this came up yet, an actress was mowed down by either a motorized cyclist, scooter, or a motorized bike. They don't know why, because it was a hit and run and she's in a coma. I don't know if she's still alive in the Lincoln Square area. So what's happening is it's not like we're, ganging up on bicyclists. It's that we're entering into new territory. It's not recreational cycling anymore. It's recreational cycling coupled with the delivery people, coupled with motorized scooters. It's a different landscape. And we should just be mindful of that and not keep discussing how we shouldn't enact any kinds of rules and regulations to protect pedestrians, because somehow it's a false equivalent. And I really wish that we would be responsible board members and start looking at the big picture and protect our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay?
First of all, thanks to Irena, because she just saved me about 5 minutes in terms of the introduction to the proposed resolution that I distributed. And by the way, I apologize for doing that at the last minute, but my family is dealing with a serious situation that we've been absorbed with for the last several days. And I just couldn't get to it until yesterday. But anyway, I second obviously everything Irena said, but the reason I raised my hand now, because I will be speaking about the e-bike resolution is because of what Ken said. And I just want to, by way of clarification, that I assume when Ken talks about things like pausing at an intersection and going through if there are no pedestrians, et cetera, that he's only referring to that concept as it refers to bicycles that traditionally were defined and still are in the vehicle and traffic law as human-powered bicycles, and that e-bicycles, which is the reason for our later discussion, is a whole different animal. So I would just like Ken to either confirm that that's what he was referring to, and if not, then we'll take it up later.
No, under New York state law, now electric bicycles are classed the same as regular human-powered bicycles, and we came into
what you were referring to.
Yes, what I was referring to.
So when you said that advocated for changes in bicycles obeying the rules of the road, you're including e-bicycles as well?
Yes, and nobody's saying that bicycles should not adhere to any rules of the road. We're just acknowledging that they're different in size and velocity from trucks and cars, and maybe they should be subject to somewhat different rules and regulations. That's all.
So you are saying that they shouldn't, that there
Yes.
should be exceptions for bicycles?
That's what I'm saying, and including electric bicycles, and New York state law accepts the fact and has now joined 33 other states in conforming with federal law that electric bicycles are classed, or for all intents and purposes, terms of regulation, the same as regular bicycles.
Okay, well, we're going to take that up later.
Yeah, that's a debate that we need to have. The fact is they're all silent. If you have any disabilities such as limited sight or limited hearing or limited mobility, you can be mowed down by a car, by a bike, by an e-bike, by a scooter. And it's getting crazy out there, as everybody has attested to.
I think we should move to that issue because we all agree that the streets, ideally the streets would be safer. We all agree that the police, with their finite resources, should clamp down on the things that are causing the most unsafe conditions. So we have something, this is very general, I'm sure we're all in agreement with that. We have something specific that Jay wanted to offer. So again, I didn't see necessarily the distinction.
Howard, I just want to add that the police should be clamping down on anything that makes the streets unsafe, not just what makes it 75% unsafe, for instance.
Right.
Because the other 25% can kill you too.
Absolutely. The things that can kill you need to be reined in. I don't know anyone who believes they should be increased. So they need to be reined in. But Jay has a very specific resolution. So it's a very general thing, and which we're all in agreement on. Jay has a very specific resolution that we should discuss because that's more fruitful to discuss something specific. Jay, do you want to briefly introduce your resolution?
Sure.
Just letting you know that Jay or Howard or Andrew, anybody can share their screen if you want, or Jay can read it. I'm just letting you know everyone, you all have that ability.
Okay. Obviously, I subscribe to what Howard just said and what Andrew said, and just for the record, not for what Ken said, because I don't agree. I don't agree on exceptions to the overall requirement that bicycles conform to the vehicle and traffic law. And I'm particularly concerned, which is the genesis of this resolution, with what's going on with electrically powered bicycles, which are in fact a different animal. You know, when the vehicle and traffic laws were written and the definitions contained therein, we were in a different environment. I mean, e-bikes basically didn't exist. And the definition, which still remains in the vehicle and traffic law, of a bicycle is a human-powered, two-wheeled instrument, if you will. And that hasn't changed. But there are now definitions in the vehicle and traffic law of various electric-powered, I hesitate to use the word vehicles, but machines, if you will. And I think we all agree that there's been an exponential explosion of the use of electrically assisted bicycles. I think we'd all be hard pressed, for example, to see a delivery bicycle, certainly in our district and as I've said, citywide, that isn't electrically assisted at this point. So I set out some bases for my recommendations, most of which I think are would be agreed upon by everybody. The proliferation of e-bikes, both commercially and privately, just a recitation of the definitions which generally permit the use of electrically assisted bicycles up to 25 miles an hour, which is almost the speed limit, the maximum speed limit within the city of New York, and certain other things. For example, that there's no registration requirement for e-bikes, so they're unidentifiable. If an e-bike rider were to cause an accident, strike a pedestrian, etc., and disappear from the scene, there'd be no way to identify them. Things like that. So, but what I view is there are kind of two levels of solutions there. I view this as a safety emergency, that all of a sudden we are inundated with these machines. And Ken is right, technically, while they are subject to all vehicle and traffic laws, we know, be it anecdotally or statistically, that they don't adhere to those laws. I also think that such things as registration, as I've said, helmet requirements, age restrictions, financial responsibility and liability, that those are subjects that, whereas I agree personally that some of them should be instituted, need further study. We need to get into the weeds more and the ramifications. So what I did in this proposed resolution was highlight the two things that I think can be done and should be done on an emergency basis. One of them is keeping these electric powered vehicles out of bicycle lanes, which confront a whole different reality to pedestrians than crossing streets without protected bike lanes, and also calling for more enforcement of the vehicle and traffic law, because of the fact that, and I think this is uncontested, these electrically powered bicycles, particularly, I might add, the ones that don't require any human power, as stated in the vehicle traffic law, that you don't have to pedal them. So it's essentially, in terms of being automatic, they're more equivalent to a scooter than they are to a human-powered bicycle. So I tried to limit this resolution, again, to the two recommendations that I think can be instituted now, and then recommend a study into all of the other nuances that may or may not create problems. And if it gives anybody comfort, I would be willing, in the first part, where it calls upon the mayor and the governor to take emergency steps to ban these electric assisted bicycles from bicycle lanes, And by the way, the definition of bicycle lanes was put in the vehicle and traffic law when electrically assisted bicycles didn't exist. But I guess, so what I'm saying is I would be willing, if it gives comfort to some people who have concerns about doing this now, to add language indicating that these are emergency steps to be instituted pending a complete study of the entire spectrum of issues surrounding e-bikes. But my purpose in introducing this and my concern was what's going on. As people have pointed out, we've had a fatality that occurred because of an e-bike in a bike lane. I don't believe there's any certainty as to the latest incident involving the actress who's now in critical condition in the hospital. But that was another case where somebody left the scene and without registration or identification, there's never any way to track this down. So again, I know that when we discuss anything dealing with the regulation of bicycles of any kind or the use of bike lanes, it tends to become contentious, and there are people with very strong feelings on both sides. But I would ask everyone to put those feelings aside for the immediate future and take two reasonable steps that I think will vastly decrease the odds of either death or serious injury occurring. And again, those are keeping these e-bikes for now out of the bike lanes and enhancing and increasing enforcement, and particularly enforcement with regard to going through traffic lights. So that's the basis for the.
Jay, do you happen to have your resolution that you could screen share with everybody by any chance, or does somebody have it?
I can. I
honestly, I think the easiest thing to do is not to. I don't think Jay's the best tech guy. So Jay, do you want to just read it?
No, Jay is the worst.
I know. So I don't know if Howard or I have a new computer, so I have a challenge. I think maybe just reading it could be quick.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
I think it'll take like 2 minutes. So whereas the use of electric assisted bicycles and scooters has increased dramatically. Virtually all delivery bicycles in Community District 7 and likely citywide are now electrically assisted. Private use of e-bikes has also substantially increased. And by the way, I could have added to that City Bike makes electrically assisted bicycles available as well. That there have been recent serious accidents between e-bikes and pedestrians, at least one of which resulted in a fatality in a bicycle lane. That e-bikes are capable of legally permitted speeds of at least 20 miles per hour. And again, that's by definition, and as much as 25 miles per hour. E-scooters can be legally operated up to 20 miles per hour. And then I cited the vehicle and traffic law sections. Enforcement of vehicle and traffic laws with respect to e-bikes and scooters, particularly with regard to obeying traffic signals, has been virtually non-existent. E-bikes and scooters are currently unidentifiable. There's no requirement that they have a license plate of any kind or be registered of any kind, etc. And under current law, as Ken pointed out, e-bikes are permitted in bicycle lanes as defined in the state vehicle and traffic law. And they're currently not subject to helmet laws, registration laws, financial responsibility laws, etc. So it goes on to say, therefore, be it resolved that Community Board 7 Manhattan requests that the mayor and governor take the necessary steps to immediately ban electric assisted bicycles and scooters from using bicycle lanes as the lanes are defined in New York State vehicle and traffic law. Secondly, that the New York Police Department accelerate its enforcement efforts regarding e-bikes and scooters, particularly with regard to obeying traffic signals. And finally, that the New York City Department of Transportation study the feasibility of enacting additional safety measures for e-bikes and scooters, including, but not limited to, helmet requirements, registration or alternative identification methods, the use of traffic signal cameras, financial responsibility, age requirements, etc. That's the entire resolution. I'm happy to answer questions or whatever you guys think is the best way to proceed, but I feel strongly.
There's a couple of hands up, Jay. You can take, Ken is first, I believe.
Andrew, if I could just make just a general,
Sure.
and just, I'm just asking us all, we know that this is a topic that brings out a lot of debate. I think we should all be courteous to each other. I would ask us to make our, speak to it, not to other people, no crosstalk. If you got something, say it. Everyone's going to have their time to speak. We don't have to be, again, commenting or pointing our comments to other people. And I do want to mention, Andrew, that I'm very confident that there's people in the audience who are going to want to speak as well. So let's just make sure that we are aware of that as well. But I ask that we're all in our best behavior and we all have our opinions and share them, and then we'll vote. And that's the way we work. So let's keep it, keep it professional from that perspective. Thank you.
Sure. I believe Ken was the first hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, Jay, I understand that this is the impulse, the origin of this is that, and it's what we all want. We all want safer streets. And I understand that with the change on our streets, the culture of our streets is changing. We're getting more what are called micro mobility devices and hopefully fewer cars. And as more people shift from one to the other. But when there's a culture change, it can look weird and it can be scary. But I do want to push back on your characterization of this as an emergency. It is not an emergency. Unless when I go out on the streets and walk around, if we really want to talk about what the emergency is, it's the emergency we've been living with for decades and decades, and that is the data that I just quoted, where in the last 2 years, for example, nearly 800 people in our district have been injured. That's one person approximately every day injured in our district by a motor vehicle. That to me is an emergency. Now that's not to diminish what you're talking about, but we do need to keep things in perspective. Also, I wanted to challenge what you said about enforcement being non-existent. Did you check with the 20th and the 24th about that?
No.
I think they would disagree.
I can see that it's largely anecdotal.
Yeah, we've all seen things as we walk the streets where we think, oh my God, I wish there'd been a policeman here, because this is outrageous. But they can't be everywhere. And if you actually look at the data, there are a lot of tickets written to cyclists. In fact, I think it was Sarah just put something in the chat showing that citywide, cyclists were written 400 more tickets than truck drivers in the city, even though truck drivers are vastly more responsible for deaths.
I think that said 2019, if I'm remembering.
Okay.
Well, that I think, Ken, that kind of supports my concern with advocating for disregarding the vehicle and traffic laws.
Well,
cars generally stop for red lights. Generally stop for red lights. Cyclists don't.
Can we have one? Ken's supposed to speak. Jay, you'll have a chance again.
Okay, he addressed me. Howard,
He's
so
right.
That's why.
And I would just encourage you, you are addressing it towards Jay, so it begs maybe a conversation. So I would, why don't you, I know you want to make your points, but I do think that sounds like you're asking Jay questions, and why don't you finish your statements and then we'll move on to the others.
Well, I did have a question I wanted to ask Jay.
Okay.
Are you talking about, for instance, city bikes are both their regular city bikes and their electric city bikes. So under your proposal, would somebody who undocks an electric city bike have to go on the regular street in the car lanes, and as opposed to the bike lane? And also electric cargo bikes that we're seeing increasingly delivering our goods in a very sustainable way. Would you force them into the car lanes also?
Well, if it fits into the category of an electrically assisted bike, Ken, I might add that the first category of electric assisted bikes, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the ones that are pedal assisted as well, is a different animal. And I thought about excluding those, and I felt, well, if it comes up and somebody is concerned about that, it's something to consider. But the short answer to your question is yes. It doesn't matter if it's a city bike electric assisted bike or a private electric assisted bike. If whatever is done, whatever laws are enacted that pertain to electric assisted bikes would apply to all bikes within that category.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and
that's what I would expect.
And you say this is about safety, your resolution. So
yes.
I'm trying to figure out, how is it safer for cyclists who happen to be using a pedal assist bike, which actually many more seniors are not doing, including my sister. How is it safer for them to make them compete with trucks and cars and fast moving traffic, as opposed to being in the safety
as
of the
I
bike
said,
lane?
I would consider an exception for pedal assisted e-bikes. The first category enumerated in the vehicles.
We've got quite a few hands waiting. Can we move? Ken, are you finished?
Yep.
Sarah, I believe you were next.
Great, thank you. There's a lot here, so I guess I'll try to be quick. But again, as Ken started out by saying, I think we all agree that the safety of pedestrians must be a top priority. The safety of all road users must be a top priority. But someone said, let's look at the big picture. So let's look at the big picture. I think there's so many stats that all of us have been citing that show that vehicles are much more dangerous for pedestrians than bicycles. So I'd love to have more conversations about how we can make our streets safe for pedestrians that involve conversations about traffic calming and protections against vehicles. Of course, we don't want anyone being hit by bikes as well, for sure. There are design things we can do to prevent that. But I think it's important that we remember that a bike lane is a part of the road. So just as on a street with no bike lane, you wouldn't go out and stand in the middle of a lane of traffic while you're waiting for the light to cross, or you wouldn't just walk out onto the street. You shouldn't just walk into a bike lane either. So I think we have to remember that these are part of the street. Someone mentioned that there's not being enforcement. Well, I did want to share this story of my friend who's here. I've known him since grad school. He's working in the city right now on a work visa. He's a financial analyst. He was riding a bike on a street with no bike lane. And so when he stopped for the light, he pulled up onto the sidewalk to keep himself safe. While he waited for the light to change, he was issued a citation for riding a bike on a sidewalk. And he's now about to lose his work visa because it's a misdemeanor and he's going to lose his work visa. So the idea that there's not enforcement is crazy. And the idea that the enforcement that is there doesn't have effects is also crazy, especially considering that many of the workers who deliver our meals day in and day out and other items are immigrants. And you're putting their very status in this country at risk by ticketing them. Ken and I today were at an event with Los Deliveristas. We wanted them to come, but these are people who are working their prime time right now, so they couldn't come. And when we told them that this was up, they were just heartbroken because they are on bikes, and you will be You know, I think Jay, you said that this resolution would vastly decrease the odds of death or serious injury. Well, I beg to differ. This would vastly increase the odds of death or serious injury for anyone on a bike forced to ride in the road with vehicles. And that includes electric bikes. They're just as vulnerable to injury from you know, crashes with vehicles. I just think it's, yeah, I'm honestly almost speechless. Obviously, mopeds should drive in the road. And as a bicyclist, when they drive in the bike lane, that is dangerous. And they should not be riding in the bike lane. I think we can all agree on that. And just for the truck stopping at red light point, I mean, yeah, of course, trucks are more likely to stop at red lights. And they still contribute to so much of the death on our streets because of other things that they do. So you can't just say, oh, they're more likely to stop at red lights. It's not a problem. They are still a problem. They're causing very much of the death of pedestrians on our streets. I just think, yeah, I'm going to stop there and leave it there. But this resolution would really, really vastly increase the odds of death on our streets.
I saw, I guess, a moped or a bike that was large enough and heavy enough to have a license plate speeding down a protected bike lane on Columbus the other day. And I'm saying to myself, this is going to overtake a regular cyclist in no time and mow them down if somebody doesn't do something.
Yeah, those guys got to be out of the bike lane for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Bikes should be in the bike lane.
The next one is Rich.
Thank you. And I know Jay talked for over 10 minutes, and as Sarah said, there's a lot here. So I want to start out, I broadly categorize cyclists in 3 categories: exercise, transportation, and commerce. And I see these 3 categories as completely different. Think of Hondas, Ferraris, and taxi cabs, but they often get lumped together. Since the resolution is about e-bikes, the spandex crews, guys out for exercise, wouldn't want e-bikes because that would defeat the purpose. There are some people riding for transportation who are using e-bikes, especially the city bike e-bikes that just don't go that fast. And also the expensive new e-bikes that you'll see if you go into a bike store. But those you can often not even tell if they're an e-bike because all the mechanics are inside. So basically what we're talking about here is the delivery cyclists. Once again, that's who we're talking about. As someone whose primary concern, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, is street safety, I'm really troubled by people riding the wrong way on one-way streets and riding on sidewalks. And I think that can't be tolerated. But as I've said for years, the issue with delivery cyclists, it's not an enforcement issue or a transportation issue, it's an economic issue. And we have a group of workers who are performing a vital service for our community, yet if they follow the laws, they make less than minimum wage. And I mentioned last month, I signed up for DoorDash. I got my nice little DoorDash face mask. Tried last month and worked for an hour following every traffic law. I actually saw a number of cars running red lights as I was stopped at the red lights. And I made $0. This past Sunday, it was over 90 degrees out, and I got an alert from DoorDash that, hey, we're really busy, you should work. So I figured I'd give it another shot. Rode for an hour and a half. And in that hour and a half, I made exactly $22.50, making 3 deliveries, exactly minimum wage. And that was only because they were really busy. So as soon as I made 1 delivery, I got an alert that there was another one waiting for me. As I finished that hour and a half, I made a 4th delivery. My wife called into Ollie's and ordered food that I picked up so we could have dinner. It cost $47, which was over 3 hours of work. This experience with DoorDash convinced me that the only way we're going to change cyclist behavior isn't by calling for enforcement, as there's a direct conflict between the sub-minimum wage earnings they're making and following the law. That if they don't break the law, they can't survive. Until we address the economic issues, it can be really hard to change behavior. As Upton Sinclair said, it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. So if we want to make our streets safer for all pedestrians who are terrified of bikes and e-bikes, not to mention for our delivery cyclists, we need to address this economic issue. I have so many concerns with this resolution. Number one, I think the idea of putting e-bikes in vehicle lanes is just a recipe for more fatalities. Number two, there already are a number of laws that aren't applying to delivery cyclists, because the third-party delivery cyclists don't employ the workers as employees, they're independent contractors. So when I signed up for DoorDash, I was not even informed that New York City already has a law requiring a unique 3-digit ID tag on the bike, a reflective apparel with the business name and the cyclist's 3-digit number, and a helmet. We need to go after these third-party delivery services and force them to make this happen and make them accountable. The idea of liability that Jay's talking about, these guys, like, their bike is a significant part of their complete assets. What are we going to do? Have people sue them for $1 million and get an old beaten up e-bike? The delivery cyclist companies, also by making them independent contractors, aren't complying with minimum wage law. They don't have liability. They're not complying with OSHA bathroom requirements. They're not providing equipment like helmets or anything. Next, every crash, every injury, and every fatality is a tragedy, and we need to make sure that they're avoided. But we have to recognize the police have very limited resources. And like I say, when I was stopped at that red light, I saw a lot of cars running red lights. We need to make decisions by data and not by anecdotes. I completely agree with Arana that we need to look at the big picture. And if we do, from 2002 to 2016, there were 10 pedestrians killed by bikes, making up 0.4% of the 2,345 pedestrians that were killed by motor vehicles, which is, one pedestrian killed by a bike for every 234 pedestrians killed by a motor vehicle. I just put in chat that I was looking up for e-bikes. I found a statistic that since November, when e-bikes were made legal, there have been 2 pedestrians killed by e-bikes. One of them tragically was in our district. We don't know whether that pedestrian stepped out. I've heard reports that the pedestrian stepped out into the bike lane from between 2 parked cars. So we don't know who was at fault. Nonetheless, though, we've had 2 pedestrian fatalities from e-bikes in a shorter period of time. Just since the beginning of the year, 56 pedestrians were killed. So we're still talking a very small percentage. Also, we've seen how difficult it is for NYPD to enforce these unlicensed motorcycles that Doug's talked a lot about, that are groups riding through our streets. The police don't want to get in high-speed chases after them, and they're basically unenforceable. And they're in imminent danger. I think something has to be done about them. But if we start going after bicycles, often what happens is we call for more bicycle enforcement or e-bike enforcement. It's hard to catch the e-bikes. It's hard to catch the spandex guys. And so they go after people like me riding 3 miles per hour, not the people who are causing danger. And I've been
All right, Rich, we really do have to move.
Quick more thoughts.
There's an awful lot of hands up, Rich.
Thank you.
We also have to recognize, can I just make a few quick thoughts? If they are ticketing this delivery service,
Beyond my 10 minutes.
vulnerable people, and they'd be taking away days worth of wages if they give them a ticket, or if they take their bike, they're taking away their livelihood.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Let Rich finish.
Barbara,
Thank you.
and then Cindy Cardinal from Helen Rosenthal's office.
Thanks to Andrew. We got that article from the New York Post about State Senator Simcha Felder. And I don't know how many of you got a chance to read it, but I just want to read one line from it. He said that he's bringing 4 new bills to Albany, and it has to do with the fact that he was terrified as a bike rider. He was terrified as a person who was operating a vehicle, a car, when suddenly a bike came out of nowhere the wrong way and terrified him, and he slammed on his brakes, and he could have killed the guy, but he didn't. And he says the streets of New York City have become the wild, wild west. The de Blasio administration has allowed a growing number of completely unregulated bicycles, e-bikes, electric scooters, and dirt bikes, ATVs on our city streets. And the 4 bills that he's bringing later this week will require all city cyclists, bikers, and e-scooter riders to wear a helmet, take a safety pre-licensing course, and slap plates on their vehicles. I want to say that I think that this is absolutely an emergency. I am 1,000% in favor of Jay's resolution. If anything, I don't think it goes far enough. There are e-bikes all over the park drives, both in Riverside Park and in Central Park. How could this be? They're illegal there, but it doesn't stop them. There are bikes going the wrong way in the streets. I myself have almost been wiped out numerous times, and most people that I know have been wiped out numerous times. It's just the situation has gotten very, very bad, and something has to be done about it. It's critical at this point for the safety of everybody, every person who.
Thanks, Barbara. Cindy?
Hi, nice to see you all again. Council, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great. So Councilmember Rosenthal asked that we listen to this discussion when we saw what was on the agenda. I'm sure she knew that this was going to be a very lively and spirited discussion, and she wanted us, Rita and I, to take notes and note what was being said. We do get quite a bit of input from the community on this topic as well by phone and email. So mainly we're here to listen and, carry this back to our team. But I will say that Councilmember Rosenthal did say that, she doesn't want to criminalize delivery workers and start giving lots of tickets that'll essentially do that. She believes that there was an intense education initiative in the past that did have an impact. So that's something to at least keep in mind. And, but also that people have meanwhile been hurt or worse, or almost hurt, and are afraid because of what's happening with some of this traffic. And that's a reality that we need to confront as well. So thank you all for your thoughtful comments. And as I said, we're taking careful notes, and we'll definitely be bringing this back to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. The next person is Jay.
Could we have everyone have the chance to speak once before we do people a second time?
Sure. Yeah, if that works for everybody. William Ortiz would be next.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi guys, thank you. I'm having a tough time with this resolution because I think it's attacking, or I don't want to use attacking, it's addressing not the real issue. I take a bike home every day. I take a train to work and I take a bike home, mainly for the exercise and for the nice ride. But the issue that I see every single day when I ride home are two things. It's speed and it's respect. So let's talk about speed. I generally like to use a pedal assist city bike to get home. It's an 18-minute ride as opposed to a 30-minute ride. So there's a lot of benefits of not sweating going uphill twice. So there's a benefit to that. And I think City Bike has done a great job in setting a standard of what it means to ride safely. The bikes can't go fast. You can push as hard as you want, but it's not really going to make a dent. And that, for me, incentivizes me to ride carefully too. But the problem with speed, every time I'm on, so I take the West Side Bike Highway, as I call it, I see two types of cyclists that go super fast. It's the delivery driver, which I understand because the business model is based upon speed, and the cyclist who's in a bodysuit who's practicing for the Tour de France, who will still go faster than me while I'm on a pedal assist bike. And it's extremely difficult to enjoy a casual ride, to get home safely when you have people who are working and or training for a marathon, right? We don't have NASCAR drivers training on Amsterdam. I don't think we should have these Tour de France drivers, cyclists, whizzing by casual pedestrians. So that's number one. The second issue is respect. And there's two kinds of respect that I see, or disrespect that I see often. It is the cyclist who disrespects the road, the traffic lights, and the pedestrians. Rarely do I ever see cyclists yield to pedestrians crossing into the Hudson. From Soho to the Upper West Side, I'm always essentially have a green light, and it's unfair to the pedestrians. The other lack of respect that I see is towards other cyclists. So an example is Yes, just last night alone, I almost had 2 crashes. A delivery rider decided to cross into my bike path, and we were a foot apart before we crashed. We didn't actually crash, but we were a foot apart because he felt that it was a good decision for him to get on my road. That was a lack of respect for himself, and for myself, and for the person who placed the order. And the other lack of respect is the speed trainer, the guy who's really, or gal who's really going for a deep, heavy exercise. And I had one speed trainer just go whizzing by me. And there's an area close, just north of the Intrepid, where it's actually really bumpy. You actually need to slow down. And the guy yelled at me for slowing down. So there's a lack of respect, understanding that I am not trying to whiz by, I'm just casually getting home. I think banning e-bikes and putting them on the streets is a very, very dangerous thing for both the cyclist and for the driver who does not want to get in an accident as well. I think no one wants to kill anyone, I hope. And it's just, I don't like the idea of it being banned. I think the issue is the speed, because we have Lamborghinis on the road and they're not going 100 miles per hour. I think we need to set a standard of speed for all types of bikes on the road. And there has to be an honest and an ongoing, consistent conversation as far as cyclists must respect all lights. I know we talk about it. I think we all agree on it. Whether you're anti-bike or pro-bike, respect is necessary for the law and for the pedestrians. Those are my 2 points I wanted to bring up. So I think if this resolution speaks to speed more and speed enforcement, and maybe calling for a plan of action to improve education as far as how to be on the road. People pull city bike who've never really ridden a bike in like 5 years. You know, they don't know what they're doing. And someone like a bunch of us here who take the bike every day, we have an understanding of the road and respect for the road. So I think there needs to be an understanding of respect for the road and a true enforcement of speed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. Roberta.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed last month's meeting when this was discussed. I had internet problems and couldn't log in. I agree with some of William's points. I think, you know, the problem is the delivery men are put between a rock and a hard place. They're supposed to get food to people very, very quickly. And if they don't, they aren't tipped. And I mean, it's really pathetic. So I think that's a major problem. That's something we probably cannot address as a community board, but it certainly needs to be considered. And I do think that anything we can do to improve both education and the ability for riders to understand that bike riding is dangerous both to pedestrians and to their fellow bike riders.
Just a question of fact. Maybe somebody knows the answer to this. Maybe Cindy does. Several people have brought up the issue of delivery cyclists and their use of e-bikes. Do we know if the industry or a particular delivery service have given their delivery folks education on the safe way to ride, what to do and what not to do? And we were going to have a forum, I guess, at some point, and maybe that went to BCI and I missed it. But do we know whether they've been given this kind of safety instructions?
They gave me a mask.
Andrew, if they work for an individual restaurant, I think if Colleen's still here, she would back me up on this. I think restaurants are mandated to give instructions to their drivers, their riders, but.
That's correct, Ken.
That's correct.
And the big delivery services?
That doesn't cover the delivery services, Andrew.
No.
Right?
Exactly,
No,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's an issue, obviously, but they're not the only ones using e-bikes in an irresponsible way, obviously. Okay, that helps. Let's go to Ken. Ken was next, and then Doug.
Okay. Sorry for speaking
I
again.
think we said, and not to interrupt you, Ken, but Doug didn't speak yet. I think we're going to have first-time speakers. And I would also encourage you to go to the community and then come back to second-time speakers. There's a lot of.
Yes, we have a number of community hands up, but Doug, you are first,
happy to
because you
yield-
haven't spoken.
I'm happy to yield to the community first and come back to me if you'd like that, either way.
Okay, no, I think that why don't you go? I
Please.
just was reminding
Well,
Andrew that
so
we have community members.
I've been outspoken about this at several meetings, and it's been something I think about a lot. We have to do something, and I think if we don't, I do believe this is an emergency because I have a history in this neighborhood since 1965. I've never been more terrified of walking across and a crosswalk, walking legally, and it is terrifying. I have elderly parents who are now disabled, and when I walk with them lawfully across Riverside Boulevard, Riverside Drive, West End Avenue, it is terrifying. And I cannot tell you, I've lost count of the number of times that bicyclists, e-bikers they're running through red lights and have nearly mowed me down and my parents. And it is perhaps more terrifying now that I am in this situation, caretaking two elderly parents, but I would put myself in a similar position of taking care of two children. It is terrifying. And if anyone here in the public, on the board, doesn't see this, well, you're blind. It is happening every day, and we need to do something about it. So I applaud Jay for bringing this up. This needs to be discussed more. And it is not a zero-sum game. It is not it is not to be mutually exclusive. We need to have enforcement against reckless automobiles, trucks, buses. Absolutely. They are more dangerous. Physics will tell you that. But the issue is that, look, just within the last week, I got a citizen app alert that a pedestrian was struck by a bike on 74th and Broadway. I happened to be a block away. I went over and all the ambulance went and police were there. The sergeant was there who actually recognized me from community council. And what actually happened was the bicyclist went through the 73rd Street in Amsterdam, going on the bike lane through a red light and actually hit the car, damaged the car. Thank God the bicyclist was not seriously injured, but he was examined. And, you know, what the sergeant said, he said, I'm very grateful that nobody was so seriously injured tonight. But what happened earlier this evening, I was on scene and that woman may not make it. And that was the actress that was hit.
At 64th in Amsterdam. Yeah.
We do not know the kind of vehicle. However, we do know that the person was walking lawfully. That was confirmed. And so we have a problem here. We have the owner of Jing Fong or the manager of Jing Fong. Yeah, he walked out. I'm not placing blame, but an e-biker killed him physically. I'm not saying intentionally or
sure.
Analogy. So, you know, we got to do something. And I want more education personally. I would like to see more enforcement. So on Jay's resolution, 2 and 3 to me are absolute no-brainers, no doubt about it. I am 100% 2 and 3. 1, I'm a little bit conflicted because I think Jay already sort of stipulated that the first category of pedal assist and regular person-powered bikes could be accepted. I would be much more in favor of that. I do have concerns about putting some of the bikers back on the roadway, but I'm just telling you folks, what are we doing? Are we not seeing this? Are you not walking in the streets? Are we not seeing how this is so prolific? And you know, there's no way to identify these people, right? So, and I'm not blaming them, but even if it's a systemic problem, everybody is walking away from responsibility. William spoke about respect, which I absolutely agree with, and the responsibility. So who's responsible? So the delivery workers that were working for restaurants, that were employees, there's a tremendous amount of liability. So one of the reasons that the restaurants don't want to actually have their own employees because of all the liability. Now you've got the third-party delivery companies that say these are independent contractors. So everyone's pointing and no one's responsible. And if someone gets hit, me, you, or your family, and they're hit and runs, right? So what are we going to do? We have to do something. And I'm venting here. I appreciate everybody listening, but I'm not saying I'm a transportation genius. I am not, but we need to have more studies. We got to do something. Cindy Cardinal just said that she gets tons of phone calls. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I appreciate everybody listening to my vent.
Thanks for venting, Doug. We appreciate it. Elizabeth, and then we will take some community hands.
First of all, it's great to see everyone. I know it's been a while. This is a really important issue to me and for the entire borough and the city. Look, we've all been doing this and thinking about this for a long time. I think anyone on this call, on this Zoom, has probably ordered from a delivery service at some point during the pandemic over the last year, and they've been critically important to us. I want to echo what a few people said about the third parties and the tech companies that are really ruling the roost here on this. And I think any resolution we make as a board really needs to hold their feet to the fire on this. I think we all care about small business. We all care about wanting to promote our small businesses. We want things to be able to be delivered responsibly. We want enforcement to happen when there are bad actors. But the reason there are bad actors with these is because they're around the clock. And they're, again, what I think the points that both Arana and Doug made are really, really important. And we need to be thinking about how we handle enforcement, do it responsibly. And I'm looking forward to listening to the community tonight, because I think that's going to guide my decision. Thanks.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Let's take some community hands. Andy Rosenthal. And please unmute. Andy Rosenthal, can you unmute yourself? Okay, let's try Nicole Clement.
I just hit Andy allow to talk. Is that going to?
Is that better? Can I talk now?
Yes.
Now we can hear you.
That was the
Okay,
magic
well,
button.
no one had sent me the unmute button. Thank you, Howard. I've been coming to these meetings almost every month for the last 3 or 4 years. I have yet to hear a real substantive conversation talking about the 99% of the fatalities here, which are caused by automobiles and cars. We continue to have resolutions and discussions about e-bikes. I love the passion here, and I am not blind to it. I cross the streets, we all do, we see it. It's a real issue. And if we didn't have this other bigger issue, I would be happy to engage in it tonight. But I ask, because Jay is the one who authored this, where is the resolution about left turning cars and trucks, which are slaughtering people for real? I've heard a lot of almost, nearly, and yes, some people have been hit and a couple of people have even been killed. But why are we continue to focus? The data is clear. There is science here, which we're ignoring. 99% of the injuries, fatalities are caused by automobiles, 99+%. We have not talked about those tonight. We didn't talk about those at the last meeting or the meeting before that.
Thank you.
I just don't, I'm apoplectic, really.
I assume, Andrew, I'll get a chance to respond.
Yes, you will,
Yes.
Jay. Let's call on Nicole. Nicole, are you able to unmute and speak?
Andrew,
How
what's
about
your name?
Nicole Clement?
Thank you.
Kevin Fagan, how about that? Kevin's hand has been up a while. No response.
Do they unmute?
We tried to,
I just hit allow to talk for Kevin Fagan.
Okay, is this work?
Yes,
you know, you
Okay.
want to promote people early. It takes about a lag of 5 to 6, takes a little time to lag. So you may want to promote them a little early.
Yeah, thanks. Now I see the mute button. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, as someone who purchased an e-bike, like just after the bill became legal last year, that I can't support the first part of this resolution in any way, because frankly, I don't feel safe on an e-bike around an 8,000-pound Escalade. And so I just think that's ridiculous. I think if we're going to consider making regulations, it should be on the weight and size of these 8,000-pound Escalades before we consider making other changes to our roads. I would say, I think the apps, it's unfortunate, but we need, I think, state regulation on the apps in order to force them to pay minimum wage and give their drivers the appropriate And they can track because they know how fast these guys are going, and theoretically they could sync up with the traffic light system to know if they're going through red lights, and they should be fined significantly if that's the case. I don't think this resolution accomplishes anything. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Nicole, have you been able to speak now?
I believe so. If you
Great.
guys can hear. Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank everybody for the discussion so far. I think it's been really good to hear a discussion on this. This is my first meeting to attend, and it's great to hear the concerns being raised and everybody's safety considered. And I just have to say that I am a little bit surprised that it seems that concern on one issue is I don't think concern on an issue of cyclists is necessarily needs to be negated because there's another issue of vehicle safety. I think that can be addressed as well, and it doesn't mean that we can't also focus on cyclist safety. And I think that's just kind of my biggest takeaway from some of the conversation thus far. Is it seems that the kind of effort to shift to, well, what about vehicles? It doesn't really have to be either or. We can do both. And just want to thank everyone for their time.
Thank you. And we actually have done both, because we have had numerous resolutions passed by the full board on left-hand turns, on split phase signals, on all kinds of vehicle safety measures. So to say that we're not doing that is, I think, great disservice to everybody. There have been many, many resolutions passed. Let me go back to Jay, because I think we've all talked now, and Jay would be the final one before we move the issue.
Oh, I also wanted to say something.
Oh, please, Howard.
This is one of the rare times I think I completely agree with Jay's sentiment. I think e-bikes do. People asked, "Are we on the street?" Absolutely, I'm on the street. I'm on the street as a pedestrian, on the street as a cyclist, and more frequently during COVID on the street as a driver. And I think it's motivated by the best of sentiments, wanting to keep the streets safe, which is my main goal. The problem I have with it is that I think, again, I agree with the goal, but I think this would thwart the goal, because e-bikes are here to stay. I don't ride them. I will never ride one. But they are here to stay. Our delivery people are here to stay. They are not going anywhere. So if you ban them from the bike lane, and I don't like them in the bike lane, I will be really candid about that, they're going to be either in the street or the sidewalk. Those are the only other two places they're going to go. And my fear is dealing with them on the street, and I've seen them the sidewalk rather. Dealing with them on the sidewalk is much more dangerous. I think that's really asking for trouble. Similarly, dealing with them in the street, as Barbara pointed out, the city council person from Brooklyn was so unnerved having to deal with this biker in the street. As I drive around, it's sometimes unnerving to have to deal with all these alternative vehicles in the roadway. And so you're basically requiring, this resolution would require these e-bikes to go on the sidewalk, which is, I think we all can admit that would be a catastrophe, or to intersperse within vehicular traffic, which I think we also, if we were to be fair, would admit it would be a tragedy. So I agree with Jay, something needs to be done. There's the Hippocratic oath that doctors take, first do no harm. We all agree something needs to be done. I just think this would make the situation worse. I think we should carefully consider what we can do to make the situation better. All agreeing that something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a state senator from Brooklyn, not a city council member, but
Yeah,
that's fine.
You demoted him, Howard.
Yeah, you demoted him. Jay, would you like to?
Sure. I do agree with what Howard, a lot of what Howard has said. I'm not sure that I can buy the argument that if we do this, we're going to force the delivery guys onto the sidewalk. I don't think it's a Socratic argument to assume that if we do this, then they will break the law and allow somebody to commit one crime because you think they'll commit a more serious one if you enforce the lesser one. That's an observation. But I do want to emphasize, we are all concerned ultimately with safety. So I have a couple of observations. Number two, bringing up this resolution has in large part accomplished my purpose in doing so in the first place. I genuinely believe that the proliferation of these electrically assisted bicycles has created an emergency environment that needs to be dealt with. However, it is ultimately decided that it's going to be dealt with. So a couple of observations. Banning these e-bikes from the bike lanes doesn't put them on the sidewalks. And if we look at the configuration of the streets from Central Park West to the river, and Howard or Andrew or anybody can correct me, but I did a quick count and I believe there are 21 traffic lanes and there are 5 bike lanes. So the vast majority of the traffic of e-bikes is in the roadway with normal traffic to begin with. As to, I'm always a little disturbed as, and I'm sorry I missed her name, but one of our fellow citizens said that, trying to shift the dialogue to the harm caused by other vehicles is just a diversion. The man that was killed by an e-bike in a bike lane is no less dead because other people or more people have been killed by vehicles. This is a problem. Yes, there may be other problems. And as Andy Rosenthal said, why don't we focus on vehicles? And I agree with Andrew, we have in many instances, but the fact of the matter is that there is a plethora of laws regulating other vehicles. And yes, people sometimes violate them. And yes, sometimes there's a lack of enforcement. But one thing has nothing to do with another. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We have a problem. There are obviously those among you that don't necessarily think that what I've proposed is a solution. But I don't think that the argument that delivery workers will be forced into traffic is really, it's a matter of numbers. They do most of their deliveries now on streets without bike lanes. And the fact of the matter is that these high-speed vehicles were not designed to go in bike lanes. The bike lanes weren't designed to accommodate these vehicles. Pedestrians, when crossing our roadways, have a very different perspective when they're crossing a bike lane than they do when crossing a roadway. If you see a bicycle halfway down the street when you're walking across a bike lane to the small island in the middle, you don't expect it to be coming at you at 25 miles an hour. And many of our citizens just have a whole different perspective. So I say, give this a try. And as I said, I'm happy to put language in there that indicates that this is an emergency action pending further study. And to address William Ortiz's concern, I'm happy in item number 2, where I'm advocating accelerating enforcement, and I specifically singled out obeying traffic, is I'm happy to add language including enforcing excessive speed. I mean, we all have a united objective in trying to deal with this problem.
Would like that a lot, actually, Jay. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, consider it done.
Jay, Natasha's had her hand up for quite a while and hasn't spoken yet. Can we just slip her in?
Absolutely.
Natasha, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry I joined the meeting so late. I just want to say that I echo what Jay just said and also what Doug had said earlier. I echo all the sentiments. I do support this resolution. And whoever wants to compare, the crashes or the deaths of pedestrians caused by vehicular traffic and somehow sort of say that crashes or conflicts caused by e-bikes is not an issue or should not really be given any importance is truly just, I don't know why we're even discussing one when we're discussing a completely different topic over here. And there have been many other meetings about the issue of vehicular traffic and conflicts caused by that. And I just want to say that when e-bikes behave badly, it kind of emboldens everybody else. So, there are bikes, e-bikes and regular bikes on the sidewalks already. There are bikes and e-bikes running red lights already, going the wrong way down a street or an avenue already. And each incidence of this bad behavior just emboldens other people. So for all those reasons, and for everything that's been said by Doug and by Jay, I really do support this resolution, and I hope others will consider it as well.
Thanks, Natasha. Colleen, are you still on? Is Colleen still on the?
Yes, Andrew, I'm here.
Oh, great. Colleen, just for factual correctness, what is it that determines a motorized vehicle, be it electric or gas powered, must be in the traffic lane? Is it the weight, is it the speed, or is it the legislation? What is it that, yeah.
It's a combination of all three. The legislation, of course, the speed that it's going at, and the weight as well. I want to say it's a combination of all three.
All right, because I'm just wondering if e-bikes were determined to not be allowed in a bike lane and were on city streets, would they then be subject to licensing and a license plate?
And again, that is something that, your assembly member, the legislation would have to, that would have to be incorporated into it.
Sure.
I would imagine so, yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, you want to just summarize and then we'll move because we do have another issue.
I don't think it's necessary to repeat.
Oh, Roberta's hand is up too.
Just before we summarize,
And
Jay,
so is my hand.
Jay, just to pause before you summarize, I'm mentioning that you have a couple people that want to, I think, make a comment, and perhaps we can let them. And afterward, and I'd like to make a comment as well, but Ken and Rich and Roberta, I think, want to make a second comment, and perhaps asking them to make it brief because they spoke would be a good idea. But I do think you should let them, I don't know if you noticed, but they have their hands up, maybe giving them.
They've also spoken several times.
Your orange thing is also has his hand up in the.
What I want to say is very quick. I will happily support Jay's resolution if you make the changes you just said you would make.
Yeah, before we vote, Roberta and Andrew and Howard, with your consent, I do have a couple of language changes, which I, based on people's suggestions, and I'll quickly read those before we vote.
Sure, and that was Roberta. Ken, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so we're discussing the resolution on the floor right now, is that
what
we're doing?
Jay is about to give you some new language
Yeah.
in the resolution. Do you want to hear that first?
Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to, on number one, I'm going to add language pending the completion of the DOT study enumerated in number 3. So everybody understands it's not a final decision. In the first line, I'm going to say the mayor and governor take the necessary emergency steps to immediately ban electric, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to add to number 2, the language, particularly with regard to obeying traffic signals and excessive speed based on Williams' observations. So with those, what I consider minor changes to accommodate a couple of different viewpoints, the resolution remains substantively the way I submitted it.
All right, thank you. Ken, did you want to make your comment now?
Yeah, first of all, what Jay's proposing is going to, New York State passed this law last year saying that electric bicycles are, for regulatory purposes, the same as regular bicycles.
Well, that's not what the law says. They legalized the use of them.
Yes, but they
no-
brought,
there's no
Jay, may I
equivalent to
finish?
We're towards the end. I want to point out that Arena raised her hand as well. I don't know if she spoke. I don't know, but I think that this is the second time through, guys. So I believe it's like you're supposed to make a brief comment, and
Yes,
for two
please.
people, should have a little bit more time. So Ken, again, I think we'd ask that you make this a brief, and Rich will have the same opportunity as well. Arena will have a new opportunity.
Okay. Well, New York City, or New York State brought the state into conformance with federal law, and it joined 32 other states in saying that for the purposes of our streets, electric bikes are the same as regular bikes. And we joined states like Alabama and Wyoming in saying that. So this resolution of yours would just turn back the clock and take us back to another time, to a very outdated time, when the states are gradually starting to recognize that bicycles are bicycles and motor vehicles are motor vehicles. Now, William made I thought, a really good point. And it struck home to me because I often ride the same bike path that he does, and I'm on it competing with delivery cyclists and with Lance Armstrong wannabes, and it's not fun. And sometimes it's dangerous. And so the solution for that is to widen the bike lanes. People are looking for a solution. What we need are what we have in Central Park, which are fast lanes and slow lanes. So, and because what Jay, you're considering doing, throwing electric cyclists into the streets, then it's actually going to be less safe for pedestrians because they're not going to know where cyclists are going to be. They could be in any lane, could be in any corner. Whereas now they're channelized into bike lanes and people know to look for them there at least.
Thanks, Ken.
So I have not finished. So if
but we've
so
got
I have not
time to
finished.
move on, Ken.
I'm about to propose.
We're managing
I'm
the
about to
meeting.
propose an alternative
Okay, then please do so.
resolution.
So please do something.
Okay, and I'm
Managing the
getting to
time.
that. My
You should know that
alternative.
many companies don't, I've done research and I'm letting everyone know that many other community boards don't allow people to speak a second time. So we're trying to be
Well,
liberal.
I've been on this board for 12 years and we've
I'm
never had a
just
rule
saying
like
that we've done, we have very long meetings. I've done a lot of research on it. And,
Well,
so go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
This is
And now we've been compared to the state of Wyoming.
and Alabama.
Yeah.
we have boost lanes.
So let's hear your alternative.
So my alternative resolution is that we need wider bike lanes. We need a fast and a slow lane, because I admit where the culture is changing on the streets. We're in a transition period. It's unsettling, and we need space for all types of riders. So that's my alternative resolution: is wider bike lanes, and that will make things safer and more predictable for everybody.
And you're not actually describing how much wider, but I assume you're getting to the point of removing another traffic lane from the avenues.
Yep. Yeah, it would at least be a parking lane or a traffic lane. I mean, it would, whatever conforms to DOT's requirements.
All right, well,
for a bike lane.
There's an alternative resolution. Is there a second?
I would second it because I feel, I just want to be really clear. Jay, your chance to
I'm sorry, Howard, but
let's
I feel really strongly, and let me say this very clearly, this is a debate about people who are against these e-bikes or cyclists and people who have sympathy for them. My goal is a safer street. And I do believe, and you're that by saying they can't go in the bike lane, they are not going away. I know you may think that's controversial, you may think I'm wrong, but they're not going away. And there are only two places they will go. And whether it's legal or not, that's where they will go, the sidewalk or weaving around in cars. And I am really concerned that in the zeal or the fervor to do something about this, it's the Hippocratic oath. First thing, don't make the situation worse. That will make it worse. Ken's resolution will arguably make it safer. That is a step. You may not agree with it, but it is a step in the right direction. It is a step in making the street safer. The cost may be too high, but if your goal is a safer street, putting e-bikes on the sidewalk or in the street, which are the only other two places they can go, they cannot fly. They're going to go one of those two places. They'll absolutely, unequivocally make the streets less safe. Try navigating a sidewalk with an e-bike going on it, and you'll see what I mean. So I do support Ken's alternative resolution. I don't know how it can be done in a way that can make it more
Howard or Colleen or somebody who might have the answer to this. Do you know if e-bikes have a speed governor on them? Is there something that limits their speed?
I just want to say something about speed governors. I was once offered a test drive of one of these, and I turned the thing, and I was going within seconds, faster than they told me I was allowed to go with the governor. So much for the governor. Those things, to the extent they do exist, can easily be within seconds undone. So I'm not convinced the governor is going to do
Okay.
anything.
Thank you,
Howard.
But
Call the question on this alternate amendment.
Wait, can I just make one more point? And my point is that we need to look at this more carefully. We're not going to solve this tonight. That's my point. I don't know if Ken has the right answer, and I don't think Jay has the right answer, but there is a problem. No one is denying that. People have said, have you been on the street? Have you looked on the street? Everyone knows, including Ken, there is a problem. The point is to make the situation better. And so that's essentially my point. And
all
now,
right. Irena, you have something.
Thank you, Andrew. Just one comment and one request of Jay. My comment is to Ken's comment about widening the road or taking another lane for cyclists, all scooters, all bicycles. And if they're not stopping in the lane that they currently have, what makes you think they're going to stop if you give them another lane? So I'm just going to park that there because I don't quite understand the rationale. But to Jay, one of the concerns I've had and that I've expressed at full board meetings when we've had this conversation is around identification. And I wonder whether we could include in your resolution some language around having, whether it's registering the electric vehicles or when they buy them, they register there and then they're given something on their bicycles that's visible, whether it's the third party, delivery, whether in addition to Uber or DoorDash, there's a number accompanying it so that if someone is not following regulations, not allowing people to cross the street, you can, notify the company and give them that identification number so that they could have a conversation with the messenger. So I'm just wondering if you could include just some language around identification.
Raina, I do have language.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it when you summarized.
If you look at number 3, where I'm asking for the study to be done, I'm asking them to study registration or alternative identification methods.
Okay, but can you take "or" out?
And Okay.
Can I make a quick
I'll
comment?
change the or to and.
Thank you, Jay.
Done.
Can I make a quick comment?
It better be quick, Rich, please.
I completely agree with Lorena's point. I'm going to propose a second amendment that I think we need to go after these delivery services because these laws exist already. The problem is that the riders are independent contractors and the DoorDashers aren't responsible. We need to make DoorDash responsible to make sure that their riders are complying with existing laws. And I'm going to propose that as a second amendment, but Ken's amendment is on the table right now. So,
By the way, I don't think Ken
Can
has
I-
an amendment. He has an alternative resolution. I'm not.
He has an alternative resolution, which
I don't know how we can
people
have
should
two
be
on the-
speaking to right now because we need to
Exactly.
take a vote on that.
Exact. I was just gonna say, I don't know how you have two resolutions on the floor at the same
You
time.
can't. Which
Andrew,
is-
can I make a suggestion that
Sure.
might, and I say might, avoid having to vote on 3 different resolutions? If, and this, the first is directed to Ken. Look, Ken, the third item here is the study. And I will put language in there in my including but not limiting to widening the bicycle lanes. And so it's clear that that should be on the table in their evaluation. If that satisfies you, we can limit this to 1 vote on 1 resolution. And as to Rich's observations, the question of the responsibility of the delivery corporations and restaurants and even Citibank in terms of liability, financial responsibility, and so forth, should really be the subject of a whole different discussion. And I think it just muddies the waters. So I'm willing to add Ken's suggestion as something that DOT should look at, and maybe we can move forward and not have to take all these different votes. I'm asking for some spirit of cooperation.
Yeah, if you'd agree to drop your first clause.
All right, no, you don't have to go further. You don't have to go further. The answer is no.
Okay, because you basically want to, change the law. And CB7 has fought really hard for bike lanes. Multiple times has voted for bike lanes. And now you want to pick and choose what kinds of bikes can go in the bike lanes.
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to know that I called Richard Ash to get him some feedback on what should go on now. And that was besides, I don't have a comment on what Rich would offer, but Ken, Jay has a resolution. That resolution speaks to moving bikes out of the bike lane, moving e-bikes out of the bike lane, safety, and a study. You're proposing something that just says widening a bike lane. So your choices is that you can add that as an amendment and vote it as an amendment. But if you want to vote that as a resolution, that's fine, but that's a separate resolution that doesn't conflict to anything that Jay is saying. And it wouldn't be a substantive resolution. It would be a new resolution that you could bring under new business and we would vote on it. But
no, it's a solution to the problem.
Again, I'm just speaking to the logistics of this. I just spent 10 minutes. So if it's either an amendment or it's a new resolution that we can do, but it would not be viewed as a substitute resolution to Jay's.
Okay. I want to amend his resolution to change his first whereas be it resolved clause. So substitute widen the bike lanes for force electric cyclists to go in the travel lanes with the motor vehicles.
Okay, then that can be voted on in that manner. And again, I'm just working through the logistics of this. So I'm going to pause a minute because then I heard Rich also wants to offer something. So Rich,
so my understanding
do you want to
vote the first one first?
I just want to make sure that Rich.
That's the first one before we vote on it. And thank you, Stephen. My understanding, and from a parliamentary standpoint, is that Ken's proposed amendment is what's currently being considered. So if I want to amend the amendment, it would either be friendly by Ken or it would need to be seconded in another vote. Is that right?
Yes. Why don't you see if you can get a friendly amendment so that we're only voting twice?
No.
They have the right to do this, whether we're right or wrong. So Rich, what?
Stephen, you have a friendly amendment on the floor. First, you have to deal with that friendly amendment. Has Jay accepted Ken's friendly amendment before Rich can then add an, you
He
can't.
said no. He said no. Thank
Oh,
you,
I thought
Elena,
he
but
said
I was
no.
on the meeting and I appreciate your input.
I
but
thought he
you
said no to the resolution.
He said no to Ken's friendly amendment, so we're going to vote on it.
So
I appreciate your thoughts, but please let me handle this for a minute and I'll give you all the chance you want to speak.
Yeah, well, I apologize. It's so confusing. You can't really follow this.
I'm doing my best I can. That's why I'm calling.
That's the objective, Lorena.
Do I have the floor?
Clearly, Jay.
Okay, so let's let Rich, again, I'm trying to stop us from voting 3 times. So we now have.
We're not going to vote 3 times, but
Kenneth
Rich,
making
let's
an
hear
amendment.
your change
If
to
you want to
Ken's
speak to
friendly
Ken,
amendment.
see if you, or if you want to speak to Ken about whatever amendment to the amendment, see if it's friendly.
Yeah, so my concern with number 2, enforcement, is that it's just an attack on these poor delivery guys. And I want to change it to say that we call on city council to make third-party delivery services responsible for ensuring that their deliverers follow existing laws, because these laws exist already for tags and numbers and lights and helmets. They're just not in place. They're not being used because these guys are all forced to be independent contractors, and the DoorDashes escape all liability and aren't on the hook at all. That needs to change. So I want to change number 2 to say third-party delivery services are responsible for ensuring that their deliverers follow existing law and that they're liable, not the delivery workers.
I think we need to vote on Ken's amendment first.
That, by
I
the
think
way,
that's-
just would be unconstitutional.
Or I don't know, Ken, do you guys want to push, Ken, do you want to combine yours and Rich's?
That's fine with me.
Then make them, so Jay.
Let's vote on Ken's and
Let's
Rich's.
vote on Ken's amendment.
So what
That's
we're
what we
gonna
need
have
to
is an
do.
amendment. It's the combination of Ken's amendment and Rich's amendment to the original resolution. Can we?
We hear Jay's comment about it being unconstitutional, and if there's a.
No, we're gonna, no.
That's actually not fair to Ken, actually, if you must know.
Let's just Jay, we're gonna debate this now. I just want to clarify what we're doing now. So we're gonna combine, it's for people that are new and for people that are tuning in, we are now going to vote on an amendment. That amendment is, Ken, could you speak your amendment? Rich, speak your amendment, because it's really a combination, but the 2 of you have different
They're 2
ideas.
totally different issues.
It really is.
Neither of which have been posted or the public has any notice of.
Well, neither did the public have any notice of yours.
Yes, well, but somebody saw that. Somebody managed.
Let's vote on separately then. Let's just make it simple. Ken.
I have to make an observation on Rich's. Rich is proposing to make these corporations criminally responsible for the actions of their deliverers. That is unconstitutional.
And we can vote it.
Period.
We're gonna vote on Ken's amendment first. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Then we'll vote on.
Why are we not combining the 2?
Because I just tried and everyone got upset. So let's just.
They're totally different issues, Howard.
So let's just logistically move forward. Ken, could you state your amendment? And we will have either debate or conversation. Your amendment to Jay's is to replace number 1 with
widen the bike lanes to accommodate all electric bicycles. And as the solution to the problem that with e-bikes that Jay is identifying, a real solution.
Okay.
Call the question.
Hey, I just want to say one quick thing. I don't think Ken's solution is a perfect solution, but I will vote for it, and I will support it because I think it arguably makes the situation better than worse.
Hey, Samantha.
Let's vote, please.
I would like to. I had not a chance to speak. I had talked to Andrew that I was going to work with you guys, so I'm going to speak to stuff in general into this, and I'll speak to the background. Probably speak to the broader issue, then I'll speak to Ken's, and then I'll speak to Richard's. the debate, as in terms of the debate, I just wanted to bring up that I find that the conversations, and I find very troubling every time we try and talk about enforcement or safety around bikes, very troubling. And I think anytime a topic is brought up where the reason you can't do something has nothing to do with the thing you're talking about, when you have these false premises are challenging. So when we say that we can't talk about bike safety because they're delivery workers, I heard that argument and I disagree. I don't think that they're, even though that many delivery workers are doing e-bikes, I think they're irrespective. If e-bikes were driving around in cars, we wouldn't say the same. It happens to be, whether it's true or not, the bottom line is e-bikes are, in my mind, vehicles that are driving around that are challenging. And the fact that the delivery workers should not stop being brought into it. The second part is cars kill more people. True. I don't understand what that has to do with the fact that we're concerned that about e-bikes. It's irrespective. We do lots of work on that. And the fact that one thing has a challenge doesn't diminish another. And then just the data, I often hear data. I think the reference to data is often very wrong. Challenges around the data around e-bikes, it's all fairly new within a year, and it takes 5-6 years often to build relevant data. And then when you talk about issues around e-bikes, you know, there's a whole thing. I come from a data company. These are self-reported data, and there's challenges with self-reported data much more than factual data. We should be voting on the premise of whether e-bikes are safe or not. I would ask everyone to do so. And my belief would be that I ride my bike every day in the city almost, and I am very uncomfortable with e-bikes riding 25 miles an hour in a bike lane. I find it to be a safety issue for me. And I have a 14-year-old kid who refuses to ride bikes anymore, anywhere between, he'll go to Riverside, but literally turns around and says that I can't deal with e-bikes. I think the e-bikes that we're describing are much closer to mopeds. These are not, they are much akin to a relationship of a moped in terms of weight, in terms of use, in terms of speed, in terms of danger than a regular bike. So I personally, I'm simply saying that I ride a bike and I don't like e-bikes and I like them out of the lane. I think we should focus on these issues and not get lost in all the other ones that consistently come up when we talk about bikes. Cars kill more people. Great, let's have a car meeting next week talking about e-bikes today. Delivery people, I'm emphasized for delivery people. A delivery person, a restaurant worker got killed. That's who it was. It was a restaurant worker that got killed by a delivery worker. People, we have to focus on those needs. And the last thing is, I'm very disappointed that we're even talking about this. You know, this is what always happens. I don't think we should be talking about a substitute amendment. I think we should have given Jay an opportunity. It was very simple. And as I've spoken to all of you independently, it's an vote up or down. It's there. You could vote it down or up. But I feel like when all of these secondary amendments come forward, there's subterfuge to sort of not have this go forward. That's what I believe to be true. I think it's an attempt to not vote on the original resolution. And I would urge everyone to vote against all of the amendments and then have a straight up vote for Jay's thing, and it'll pass or it won't. And that's the way it works.
May I respond to that, Steve? Because it is absolutely not a subterfuge. We are looking for solutions.
I'm just saying that's my opinion.
You actually made a very good, you made a very strong case for my amendment, which is that this would give electric bikes their own lane, and your son would feel fine riding in the slow lane.
That's
and
not
electric
true.
bikes would be.
My son wants e-bikes out of the bike lane. My son wants e-bikes.
We really need to vote, folks.
So we not have a debate and vote.
Let's vote on Ken's. Howard, yes? Okay, let's vote on Ken's substitute, which was to widen the bike lanes so that they accommodate conventional and electric bikes. That's Ken's substitute. Is that fair, Ken?
More easily, yes.
Yes.
Accommodate them more easily.
That's not friendly.
Separate them. Is that correct, Ken? Is that what you mean?
Yes, to separate slow from fast riders.
We have to understand what we're voting on. So what you're saying is to create a separate lane for e-bikes that where they were dedicated lane for e-bikes so that they would not be with the pedestrians, they would not be with the cars. And not be with the
I
cyclists.
object to that. That's not what he said. He said,
I'm asking what he said.
said widen the bike
Can
lane.
Ken say what he said?
Yes,
Ken
that's
is
what
here
I'm-
with us.
Yes, I'm focusing more on speed, so it would be slow and fast.
Oh, slow and fast. Okay, I just want to, it's important to understand what we're voting on.
Okay. All those in favor of Ken's suggested amendment or substitute, however you want to word it, please raise your physical and or electronic hand.
Just remember, this is.
This will be,
committee
yes, we will do committee members only at this moment. We will take non-committee board members afterwards. Let me see how many we see. One, two. Somebody doing counting as well?
If you look at it, if you pull up participants, Andrew, just hold on one sec. If you look in panelists, you'll see digital hands to the left, and then you can see physical. So Howard's physical hand is up, and I see 2 digital hands. I mean, it's a small group, so it's a little bit tough to do this. So I'm going to say I see 3 votes.
That's what I
2
see.
digital, one physical.
1 physical, 2 digital.
If we're missing somebody, please speak up. Okay.
All right. Those opposed to the resolution.
The amendment.
I'm sorry, the amendment. Wait a minute, I have to, hold on one second, folks. Okay, now please vote if you're opposed.
And just committee members.
Nicole Clement, please mute.
Try to mute her a couple times.
Okay, I think I see.
Are you voting, Andrew?
I did, my hand is up.
Hands up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As far as committee members, I see 5. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, non-committee members.
You got to.
Oh, abstentions. I'm sorry. Any abstentions? Let me lower the hands first.
How many votes against?
5.
5.
1. Let's pause here because we're abstaining. There's 1 digital abstaining.
Okay, I didn't see that one, but okay.
And then for cause.
Oh, I do see 1 abstention. Yes. Any for cause?
Sorry, please change my vote from abstention to no. Thank you.
Okay, so that's 6, Roberta. 6 no's.
Got it.
All right. We should do non-committee board members. In favor of Ken's proposal?
Mm-hmm.
I see 1. Let's lower the 1.
Say who that was?
Rich.
Rich. And now, non-committee members who are opposed to Ken's resolution or proposal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
5 digital, Andrew, and then mine is.
And 1 regular, 6, yes.
And then you want abstaining?
Yes, let me lower those.
I'll do that for you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
You count.
Any abstentions of non-committee board members? Don't see any abstentions.
And then for cause.
Yes, any for cause?
No.
No. Okay, I think now we are ready to vote on the original resolution.
No,
Jay-
I still had an amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ken's amendment is defeated. Rich, you want to put your amendment for it?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree with Doug that we have to do something, but that doesn't mean we need to do the wrong thing. This resolution attacks delivery cycles and will not solve the
Can we
actual
get to
problem.
the,
What?
can we get to the amendment?
Okay,
It's a-
let's,
it's
let's,
all
I have the
time
floor.
I just spoke.
Rich, can you read? I think we know your position. Could you read? We're at the point where you're going to read what you want us to vote on.
Can I have like 20 seconds to?
No, we have to move on. You've spoken. Just read the,
No. Just read it.
read the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
just read the
I'm
wording.
reading number 1 because it will call for fatalities, and changing number 2 to say that third-party delivery services need to be responsible for ensuring that their deliverers follow existing law. And we call on city council to pass legislation making third-party delivery companies rather than the actual deliverers responsible. That's the
Okay.
only thing that's going to be effective.
Okay, so we're going to vote. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay.
Did anybody second this
I have a
resolution?
Question, who
Rich's
seconded
resolution.
Rich's
No one has
resolution?
seconded it.
That's a
Has
good point.
anybody seconded Rich's proposed resolution?
Not to my knowledge.
I
I
second.
will second it.
It's seconded. Okay, I've heard it from 2 people now.
Okay, so let's vote.
Question?
Unconstitutional.
Rich, is this language in substitute for some of Jay's language or in addition to Jay's language?
We're getting rid of Jay's number 1 because I worry that putting bikes in.
We don't care because
Okay,
So this
please.
substitutes for number 1.
We've done well so far. Just let him speak. It's removing number 1
And substituting number 2.
Great, let's vote.
Okay. All committee members in favor of Rich's proposal. Let's see hands, physical or electronic. 1, 2.
So I see 1 physical and 2 digital. I'm just helping you, Andrew.
Yes, I do too. So that's 3.
3, Roberta. I will
Got
lower the hands. We shouldn't both do it. Just get don't do.
Yep, lower the hands. Okay, now opposed to Rich's resolution.
This is committee members. Andrew, I'm not gonna double, are you,
Yeah, I can't put up the electronics, so,
you're 7.
okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 against.
7 against. Any abstentions?
Let me lower the hand 1 sec. Any abstention?
Any abstentions? Committee members now. I see 1 abstention.
Correct?
Any for cause? No. All right. And now non-committee board members in favor of Rich's resolution. 1, 2. I see 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna lower them.
Okay. Non-committee board members opposed to Rich's resolution. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay,
5.
lowering hands, abstain.
Any abstentions, non-committee board members? Do not see any.
And
Okay.
for cause.
Any for cause?
Okay,
Okay, now we are back to Jay's original resolution.
just a statement, Rich's amendment didn't pass, and now we'll vote on the original resolution.
Exactly, as originally, well, Jay did make some changes, so it's his updated language. All committee members in favor? Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.
Yep. I'm gonna lower hands.
Lower hands. Committee members opposed to Jay's resolution. 1, 2.
3.
3, actually.
There's 3. 2 digital
3.
and Howard's
Yep,
hands physical.
and 1 Howard. Yep, 3.
It's 3. It's
Yep, 3. And now abstentions.
lowering.
Committee member abstentions? No. Any committee member abstentions for cause?
Ineligibility, not abstention.
No. Okay. Okay, now non-committee members in favor of Jay's resolution. 1, 2,
I think it's 4.
I'm sorry, 3 in, it's
Mine
oh,
is also
yeah,
it's
4
4 in favor
4.
of it.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
I'm going to lower the hands.
Lower the hands. Committee members opposed. Yeah. Non-committee members opposed, excuse me. Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
That's 3 opposed.
3 opposed. Yep, don't see any more. Non-committee board members abstaining. Don't see any. Any abstentions for cause?
Or cause is not an abstention, it's ineligible.
It's just
or ineligible to vote. Yes.
The answer is
Don't
0.
see any.
Okay. We did it.
Okay.
What's the vote?
It passed.
Yeah, what's the vote?
Roberta, do you want to read it back?
Yes,
3.
it's 7 board, committee members 7300, non-committee board members 4300, so it passes.
Thank you.
I want to acknowledge Roberta said that she had to leave at 8:30 and she stayed past, and this was a tough minutes note, so I don't know if someone can pick up the last few minutes and let her leave.
Well, I can stay for a few more minutes, so.
Okay, well, thank you for doing that, and it was a very difficult
Yes,
minutes
we
meeting.
really appreciate it. And we're going to use it as
I'm
an
able to
incentive
make
to
a
keep the
phone call in
movie,
the morning.
Yes.
to keep the meeting moving.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so
Howard.
much.
Howard. and
We
Andy,
we now
I'll add the few additional words and I'll get that to you hopefully tonight.
yes,
Thank you.
please do. Thank you, Jay.
We have the final, before the new business, we have the final issue, that is the police vehicles parked in the left turning lane on 81st in Columbus. Steve has been in contact with the precinct. Is there any update on that, Steve?
Unfortunately, no. As you think you guys saw, that my understanding is that Captain Zuber might have been on vacation, and that's why he wasn't at our meeting this week. I will try again. And I know, Cindy, if you're still on, I know you mentioned that maybe you were inquiring as well. I don't know if you've had any progress as well on this topic.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's visibility. It's not a safe condition.
Understood. I was asking Cindy Cardinal, who's.
Yeah, I also have not had a response.
So I will be happy to continue and coordinate with Cindy. I understand the issue, and I'll do my best to get a response by the next meeting or before.
Great. We look
Great,
forward to
thank you,
that.
Cindy.
Any
Pleasure.
Thank you, Cindy. Any new business, old business?
Real quick thing, but on the same topic of police enforcement, I mentioned earlier how I reported that Fresh Direct truck and how the police just marked it as resolved when it wasn't.
Yes.
It feels wrong that and that's happened closer to my home. I've reported illegally parked cars, like a car parked on the sidewalk. And as soon as I post it, they'll just mark it resolved without anyone even showing up. And it feels like for them to be resolving something without coming out and looking at it, without actually resolving it, is a wrong statement. And I'm just wondering, what we do about that.
Rich, it doesn't feel wrong. It is wrong. And I think we just need the Zuber here to discuss this with him. I think we all can agree that if there's a complaint, they need to look into it as opposed to dismiss it. And so there's nothing really to discuss at this meeting, unfortunately, because.
Well, I believe Rich is in the 2-4, so I think we need Deputy Inspector Yaguchi.
Okay, maybe we can get them both for our next meeting. That would be
Yeah, we
great.
really need to get them. And Colleen, does DOT still have these inspectors that go around to all different streets and observe unsafe conditions and issue DOT summonses?
So yes, we have our highway inspectors and they go on there and they inspect the sites to make sure that they are in compliance. If not, we would issue a corrective action request to them.
So
to-
if you saw a Fresh Direct truck endlessly parked in a location, would you do something about it?
No, that's an enforcement issue. We would not do anything. Yeah, that would be the local precinct. They would have to enforce that.
And that's a great example. Fresh Direct just has a permanent spot in a travel lane of Amsterdam Avenue at 103rd Street. They're,
Yes.
you know, all day, every day, they're parked in that spot, blocking a lane of traffic.
And they used to have it on 87th and 88th in Amsterdam, and there was a commotion and they moved, and it's just out of, they're doing business on city streets, but basically not paying for the space.
It's like, I want to buy a bus and just run an office on the street and block a lane of traffic. It would be cheaper than paying rent.
Yeah, we must get the Deputy Inspector Yaguchi and Captain Zuber at the next meeting.
You know, I'll be happy to work, and maybe we topic just feedback from the community on enforcement and see if we can get either them or their point people to go over various different topics. If we can, perhaps we'll put together like a list and send it over so they'll be prepared.
And if anybody can take pictures of the offending vehicles, including license plates, that would be helpful.
Great.
And I have new business, or actually it's old business.
Do I have my hand up?
The Budget and Strategy Committee needs you to start looking at your top priorities. I tried to go online to find last year's top priorities. Andrew, I don't know if you have them in your notes.
I'm sure I have them somewhere, yes.
If you could look at your notes, and we're asking that at the July meeting, you vote on your top priorities. I sent
Okay.
everybody on the Transportation Committee yesterday, but
Yep,
I'm
we
just,
got it.
you need to vote, and Andrew, I'll give you a call. We can go over some of the district needs stuff to revise it.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Roberta. Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think it's clear that there are issues with, you know, the e-bikes and street safety. I think that this resolution came up at the last minute. I didn't have time to think about good amendments. You know, I think the conversation tonight was harried and, you know, not as thoughtful as it could have been. So I think in new business, I'm required to say that I'd like to potentially submit a resolution next month with other proposed things that we could do that I think might actually address some of the problems. So I would like to work on that with anyone who's interested on another resolution about the issue.
You're free to do that, absolutely. Thank you. Any other old or new business? Doug?
I just want to say, responding to some members of the community, including Andy Rosenthal, that I feel very strongly about enforcement against poor motorized vehicle behavior, including cars, trucks, buses. So I welcome any other proposals that would increase safety that would be specifically focused on, you know, on motor vehicles. And so if there's anyone that, you know, happy to discuss it, because I think it's very important. And if there's anything specific, I'll think of something for next month. But if anyone has an idea today that we can then bring up for the next month, I would welcome that.
Well, Doug, you raised an issue that we have raised any number of times, and maybe either Cindy or Colleen can speak to it. Where are we with additional cameras for the streets? Is that awaiting legislative action in Albany, or are we allowed to propose additional camera locations?
It's
Well,
a
we have a-
legislative action in Albany.
It's awaiting action in Albany, and they're going to go out for the whole summer shortly.
We currently have a limit on the number and the times that they can be activated.
And we got to get that changed.
I believe there's a bill pending in the state assembly for this. I think it was Brad Hoylman is, if I'm not mistaken, is bringing that up to increase the number of cameras.
It'd be great if that passed in this session.
And Andrew, when you talk about these cameras, you're only talking about speed cameras, correct?
I am.
And also turning
I
them
think
on.
we should focus attention on, and I mentioned it in the resolution, on red light cameras. I mean, they have them.
Absolutely.
They
We
have
want them
them
all.
throughout the state. And frankly, you know, within the city, they might be more of a safety factor even than speed cameras.
Yep.
New York City is only allowed, I think, 140 red light cameras.
Didn't they increase that recently?
They did, they increased it to, which are the ones that are by schools? Is it the speed camera or the red light?
Speed cameras.
Speed camera.
So we have to make sure.
Red light cameras would be great too, obviously. I
We
don't
have
know
to
why
make
there's a
sure-
limit on these things. You're either for safety or you're not.
Andrew, we have to make sure that there are cameras by every school. That we're supposed to
Oh,
be
absolutely.
in every school within our district. Well, not quite 2 years ago. So we should look to see. Jerry Nadler had a big press conference at PS 199 on it. We should look to make sure that every school has the.
Yeah, Colleen, do you have a list of all our speed cameras by schools? Did we lose Colleen?
They're not going to publish that, Andrew.
No, I just want to know if she has it.
Uh-huh.
I guess we lost her. Oh, well, she lasted a very long time.
And you're losing me.
Thank you so much, Roberta.
You're welcome. I'm gonna,
Anybody?
I need you to look over some of the stuff.
Sure,
I'll do it tomorrow.
sure. Anybody with any
Anything
other
else?
issues before we ask for an adjournment? Then
Okay,
thank you all for your participation. And we will see you and we will keep you posted on any new developments.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye-bye.
We're in
Bye.
this
Everyone.
gun violence way up in New York City, but there's another not very good statistic that is also up. Road violence.
Yeah, 70 New Yorkers were killed in the first 4 months of the year.